Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today, we're going to make a spread together so I can show you my whole entire journaling process. This video isn't exactly a tutorial, but I'm hoping it can be helpful to anyone who's curious about my process or who needs a little help. Also, everything I use is free. I don't use the paid versions of any of these apps or websites because I believe in hobbies being accessible, and everything I use is always listed in the description box. So let's get started with inspo for my new spread. Usually whatever I'm making a spread about informs my decisions, like there might be a specific color palette that I need to work with, but I get a lot of overall inspiration from journalers in South Korea that I see on social media, specifically YouTube, Twitter, sometimes Instagram, especially the artists who sell their own stationery, and Pinterest. I've mentioned some YouTube channels before that I like, so I'll leave them in the description box. I love looking at the infographics that artists post, not only the designs of the products themselves, but the backgrounds they use, the mix of the patterns. I'm always thinking about how I can replicate the pretty things I see online in Canva in my own way. I found a lot of good examples to show you in this video because there's a newer illustration fair in Korea called ... and the second iteration of it just happened, so there were lots of artists announcing they would be there. Looking at color palettes is important to me too. Sometimes I'm drawn to something and I realize it's because I like the way the colors have been combined together. And one of the reasons I can unfortunately never leave Twitter is because there are a lot of people who make digital stationery to kindly share with everyone. I'm always on the hunt because I like to retweet anything I see so that those of you who are following me can see it too. But I think the main catalyst for my spreads is just scrolling through my journaling Pinterest board. There's always something new that I'm excited about using, and fairly often I'll see two pins next to each other that somehow match perfectly, and I think it must be fate. I have to use them together. Speaking of Pinterest, now that we're excited and inspired, we can move on to part 2, gathering our journaling items. I said I would show everyone my personal journaling board one day, and today's that day. Please don't be like me. Fully organize your Pinterest boards. It helps the decision-making process be so much easier. I have some sections, but not nearly enough. Like ideally, I would have sections like backgrounds striped, backgrounds polka dot, backgrounds with pink stars, backgrounds with blue stars, like that. Maybe one day. But now is when I start deciding what the color palette for the spread will be. I like pastels mixed with vibrant colors, so that's what I usually go for. You can always search for cute color palettes though if you're stuck. I think it's also important to look at items and see their potential beyond what they already are. Does that make sense? Like, this wallpaper is really cute on its own, but I would probably crop it and use it like washi tape. I try to keep in mind that I can always crop things, use frames, change the colors, and for anything that I'd like to be transparent, like alphabets or stickers, I almost always use remove.bg. The quality of the image really suffers, but it's way faster than me attempting by hand in the sketchbook app. If the quality really bothers you though, you could probably put the image in an image upscaler. That might help. I've never bothered with trying to do that though, because so far the image quality being low hasn't been much of an issue for me. I also usually have the backgrounds I'll use in mind by this point because scrolling through all the options like this gives me a better idea of how they'll look next to each other on the page. Once I've downloaded anything and everything I think I'll need for the spread, then I move over to Canva to begin the process of making it. When I open Canva, I usually have no idea what the spread is going to look like unless I've recently seen something I want to try recreating. The first thing I like to do after uploading all my new deco items is lay out everything I want to use just to make sure it does go together. I usually skip this step because I'm screen recording for my videos, but it's really helpful to grasp what your color palette is looking like, or if you have too many items and not enough space for them all, things like that. I start with the biggest or most important items first because those are kind of like the anchors for the spread. Any pictures or art or memo notes, whatever is the highlight of the spread, that's what I start with first because everything else will be built around them. For me today, I loved that polka dot apple and also the hot pink striped wallpaper. And I also know I want to use the star stickers I removed the background from. And now is when I begin layering. Like I said before, I usually have the background wallpapers picked out in my head already, but there are definitely times I don't like the combo and I have to go right back to Pinterest to pick out something else. Frames on Canva are so helpful. I don't think I can make a spread without using a star frame, and this one is no different, but there are a lot of options, so definitely just search for whatever shape you're thinking of, and there will probably be one. There's an oval frame I use often, and recently I've used one shaped like a house and one shaped like a maple leaf. There are frames that look like torn pieces of paper. You can even make the frame a color, so it'll turn into a regular shape element if you want. Because I like keeping my background simple, adding frames like this is a good way to add more colors or patterns to customize them. And I recommend locking the frame once you have it where you want it so you don't have to deal with other items accidentally replacing what's already there. I'm sure if you watch my videos, you've seen that happen because I literally always forget to lock my frames. Layering for me is truly trial and error. I think it looks the most interesting when the pieces are different sizes, different patterns, different colors, or maybe different shades of the same color, different shapes even. So I just play around with the layering order. Some of my spreads don't really have layering. I just try to fill up the space, kind of like a puzzle. And again, for me, I think it really depends on whatever I'm making a spread about, because sometimes I like for spreads to have a really kind of like a collage feel where there's just a bunch of stuff on the page. I like it to look kind of almost messy and jumbled. And then there are times where I want it to be really simplified and I want it to look more like a journal page, as if I were looking at an actual page in a real physical journal. I've said this before, but I like a little bit of realism in my spreads. I try to make them look as if they could be in an actual physical journal. My movie journal is the one that strays the most from that. So that also helps me decide, do I want this to look more realistic today, or am I going to lean into the fact that this is a digital journal and not limit myself at all? I feel like I should mention, it takes me days to be finished with my spreads usually. I work on them a little at a time until I feel satisfied. I move things around constantly. If you're scared to mess up all your work by rearranging things too much, I always just duplicate the spread when I think it looks nice. That way I can always go back to the OG, or like to the point that I liked it if I end up hating the changes I make. I also always try to balance the colors of the spread. What I mean by that is if there's something yellow on the right side but not on the left, I'll search through my yellow items until I find something that fits. There are only 2 blue items, which looks awkward, so I immediately thought of a plain blue star sticker I knew I have. I think I mentioned this a long time ago, but things in nature are typically found in odd numbers and our brains understand that. So I'm always counting, especially if I'm adding accent stickers or stars at the end of making spreads. I try to do groupings of 3 or 5, but sometimes I only have room for 2 of something or 4. 1 is also an odd number. Maybe I need to not be greedy and 1 is enough. At this point, when I'm done with the base of the spread, I look at it to figure out where I'm going to write my journal entry and also where I'm going to write the date or any captions or add the stars for my reviews. This spread in particular isn't for anything. I just made it for the purpose of this video, so I'm not worried about writing the date, but I'm definitely missing something on the right-hand side. I either need to go back to Pinterest to find something else to layer on top of the pink striped wallpaper, or I could write my entry in white. But for now, I'm going to show you my alphabets. These are the ones I use the most. There's no reasoning behind why I picked them other than I try to switch up the fonts every once in a while. Today I'm going with this one because I loved how it looked in Win's birthday spread, so I want to use it again. The background colors are too dark to use it as it is, so I'll make the alphabet white. I do this a lot. When you have an item selected, if you click on Edit, then scroll down, there's a feature under Effects called Duotone. Once you click that, if you go to the Custom option, you can slide the highlights and shadows around to any color you'd like. I'm just going to spell out Sheree's diary today. This is actually my absolute least favorite part of making my videos. I feel so much pressure to hurry because my iPad is always low on space, so my screen recordings can't be too long. So now that we're magically done with that, I'm going to use some basic shapes now. The basic shapes on Canva are always helpful. I actually added a white square behind the star sticker with the pudding because remove.bg erased that part without me realizing it, I guess. I'm going to use the square shape as well and make a place for me to write. I love this corner rounding tool. I could have just used the rounded square shape to begin with, but I do use this tool for wallpapers and memo sheets as well. It's definitely helpful. I actually don't like how another big block of color like this looks, so I'm going to split it into smaller pieces, kind of like a lined memo note. Choosing which colors to make the little boxes is hard because I feel like I already have enough of everything except red, but red would also be crazy. Trying to write on top of red, I'd have to use white. Also, this is when using the app version of Canva is more helpful because the app has a color selector tool so you can match exactly instead of guessing. I personally like having Canva open in a browser tab so I can go back and forth between Pinterest if I need to, and I think switching between tabs is more efficient than apps. I don't know. I also love the basic star shape. Today I'm using it as a tiny accent, but it looks pretty scattered all over a background or over pictures. I use it like a sticker basically. I started thinking this spread will probably be the last page in my archive journal for the month of November, so I thought it might be good to do some kind of last days of 2024 spread, but that's it. I don't think I need to use any tape or gems or anything like that, so I'm not going to scroll through my starred elements on Canva. Some jelly stickers might be cute, but I feel like it's crowded enough. So now I can begin writing. Can you see I've been coloring still? LOL. This is the app Sketchbook. On Sketchbook, you can make your own canvas size, or you can just open from image, and that's the easiest for our purposes. I always add a new layer and write on that. And that's because I like to save my writing as a separate image from the actual spread, because I'm always paranoid I'll need to rewrite something, but you can skip that if you don't care and just leave everything on one layer. And then I use the 6B pencil brush in the size 3.2 in black. I don't have the brush customized at all. All the settings are just whatever Sketchbook's default is. It looks the most like a pencil to me, so that's why I use the 6B one. I think Procreate's brushes are even nicer. I don't know personally, but I'm guessing. But alas, this is all we have. When I'm making monthly calendars, I use the technical pen. But as I was explaining before, that realism I like in my spreads, that analog feeling, I try to go for that. So that's why I use the 6B pencil. That's just my personal preference though. When I'm done writing, I sometimes duplicate the layer to make the writing look darker. It depends on the day, it depends on the spread. Sometimes my writing looks dark enough, but this time I thought I wanted it to look darker. To save the writing separately, I hide the layer with the spread as well as the background, and then I save it as a PNG. Then I unhide the layer with the spread and save the entire image as a whole again. Like I was saying in my videos, now it's time to put the spread into my digital journal. I use the paper app for all my digital journals. This spread is going into my archive journal, so I'll select that one and add a new page. I honestly don't think the dimensions I use are a perfect fit, but it's as close as I can get without any major experimentation. I just take my time, making sure all the edges look lined up correctly. If you want it to stop shaking like this, by the way, you can just tap the image once and it'll stop. I think that also is a little bit more helpful if it's not shaking like that, so you can really see what you're doing. I just try to go slowly and make really tiny movements, if that makes sense. Like teeny tiny adjustments until I feel like it's just right. And with that, we're done. That's my whole process. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Like I said at the beginning, I really hope this is a helpful resource for all of you. Let me know if you have any questions, and also let me know if there are any other videos you want me to make in the future. I always write down suggestions. Everything I used in today's video will be in my Pinterest board, which is linked below. I hope you're having a good week so far. I hope you're having a good month so far. I will be back very soon with another video, so I'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone!